All right, good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? A little bit of a smaller crowd tonight. How many of you are at FITC? A couple of you? Okay, fair enough. FITC has one of their big parties going on tonight, so you guys get a nice little intimate environment with me. I pretty much stacked the crowd, so just so you know, I have a few fans in the crowd. I won't tell you who they are. We'll see if we can find them. A couple of months ago, and actually it's interesting because it was actually here at Pivotal, Yasna, I don't remember, Yasna actually gave a talk about hiring a junior developer, and it was advice to companies about hiring a junior developer and what they need to know about mentoring and everything else. So thanks to her, because it's because of her that I'm giving this talk. Because I was looking at going to Code Camp at that time, and shortly thereafter I spoke with her and sort of figured out where I was going. And so I thank her for this, because this is the reason why I'm giving this talk tonight. So now I'm looking at it from the perspective of, if you wanted to go to code school, what are some of the things that you need to learn? Or what are the things you need to know? This is the first time I've given this talk, so I apologize if it's a little bit unpolished. I'm used to sort of giving it a bit off the cuff, and this has sort of been formulating it as I've gone along. So we'll see where this goes. So everything I need to know about life, I learned at Code School. So a little bit about me. I am a recent graduate from BrainStation. So everything you're going to hear tonight is about my experience at BrainStation, even though some of and most of what you're going to hear tonight is meant to be sort of a larger picture and things that I should have done potentially in looking at code schools and whatnot. But let me also preface by saying that I do not regret my choice. Okay, so I will say that right up front. So I took the full stack web dev program at BrainStation, 10 weeks intensive, 40 hours a week. We started in April, finished in June. I'm a former instructor at Sheridan College, and I taught web design there for 5 years as part of the joint program with the University of Toronto, Mississauga. And we were teaching WordPress, HTML, CSS, PHP, all kinds of fun stuff. I'm a serial word camper. I've been to and spoken at probably more than 25 word camps. Speaking number 26 will be up this weekend, and attendance number 30 will be at WordCamp Toronto this weekend, where I am delivering this talk. So you guys get to be my guinea pigs. I want feedback, I really do. I've also been on the organizing team for Toronto, for Hamilton for 2 years, Milwaukee 2016. I'm also a contributor on the WP crowd. I am also considered a lead dudette. And I thought this, I was trying to figure out a title, and my friend Matt Clancy from GoDaddy actually came up with this. He was defined as a young woman or girl who is very popular or admired by her peers. Well, sorry, I forgot to tell you about the deck. So the deck is actually my contributor day so it's not just about a deck, a slide deck. Thank you, Kira, I appreciate that, because Kira and I, who's in the front row, and probably my head heckler, we actually built this deck in Milwaukee. This was our contributor day, is what I called it. WordPress and WordCamps have a common theme of doing a contributor day. This is our contributor day, because we built the sucker. So that the guy who we were building it for could actually host the speaker dinner that night. So this was actually on the Thursday morning. He was hosting it on the Friday night. So Mark Benzakine, part of that deck is still considered, what did we call it?
Canadian soil.
Canadian soil, yes. So there's a flag somewhere. Just you know, if you're ever in Milwaukee and you get stranded, go find Mark Benzakine. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about before the camp, during the camp, and after the camp. It's pretty simple. Simple formats, things that you need to know before you go, while you're at the camp, and then what you need to know after you've gone to the camp. So we're going to talk about, in generally speaking, these 4 expectations. This is what I was going in with when I started. I was told, and this is only in conversation, so trust me when I say we'll probably not find this typed anywhere in a statistic. When I asked them, what kind of level should I expect to be hired at, or how many have you hired? I was told that 80% of the graduates are hired within the first 30 days. Okay? 95 within 90 days. That's pretty good. That's pretty impressive. That's what I was told on the phone. It's not exact science, I get that. And we were always told this is not a promise, and I'm okay with that. But at least it gave me an understanding of where we are with this. Upon completion, competency as a full stack web developer. So we actually learned JavaScript as a full stack. Okay, we did not learn ASP or like .NET. We didn't learn C languages or anything like that. We learned strictly JavaScript. We didn't learn Ruby. That was the particular school that I went to. That there were partnerships that companies would hire us afterwards. That was my understanding. Okay, they had partnerships. Even in the first couple of weeks that we attended, there was a session that we attended where they said, we have partnerships with all these companies because they come to us for training. Oh, so then you're not necessarily training their company people to do the development work, but you're doing a session for a day or two, but you've got good partnerships with these people. And that there was going to be post-graduation support. You are going to be helped to get a job, because otherwise, how else are you going to measure the success of your students, right? That seems like a logical thing. As an educator, that's exactly what I did at CCIT. I would always ask, even when I came to DevTO, so you want to hire my students? Great, hire my students. Don't hire me, hire my students. Michael will know that because I tried to get him on. Thanks, Mike. So, bit of a story before I went into BrainStation. So to give you an idea, before I went into BrainStation, I have a network administration webmaster diploma. I'm a Microsoft certified professional. I have a bachelor's degree in information technology management. And I was teaching for 5 years. So it's not like I'm going into this from one career into something completely different. I have some exposure to this. Could I call myself a developer going into this course? No. Could I call myself coming out? Yeah, probably. Okay? So to give you an idea, and again, this is based on my story, is that this is actually me graduating in 2009 from Ryerson with my bachelor's in commerce. What you need to know before, so this is about your research. How do you pick a school? Do you pick a school? There's always some pieces of this that you're going to have to figure out. So first of all, I recommend, okay, and this is not necessarily what the coding schools will tell you, I recommend that you have some prior experience in coding. Okay? I know that a lot of the people that came into our program who did not have a career or any sort of education in coding before coming in struggled. I am not telling you that you can't do it by any stretch. But if I struggled, you will struggle even harder. Okay? So again, this is just my advice. That's me that's actually me at the TARDIS console in England. Yeah. Point is to have some experience in scientific stuff. Good point. Good point. You'll find some mix and match of images in here. But traveling through time is not a prerequisite. No. Know what employers are looking for. Regardless of whether you go to camp or if you decide to go to a camp, which camp you go to. Make sure that you have an understanding of what the employers are looking for. And I'll explain also a little bit of why I go through this, but you need to know what kind of technologies. How much experience are they expecting? Are they looking for front end, for back end, for full stack? What is their full stack? Which is what I'll talk about in a little bit. This is something I did not do and I should have done. And regardless, again, of which code school you go to, because I actually had people seek me out while I was attending BrainStation to ask me what I thought of the experience. And this is something I should have done, is seek out former grads of the program or people who are going through the program to find out what their experience is. Have they found a job? Have they not found a job? What are your findings afterwards? Connect with them on LinkedIn, seek them out, and find out what those traits are, okay? Again, this is one of my lessons learned. So things to know during the camp. This is what you need to do while you're attending the camp. So now you've decided which camp you're going to go to. And that could be because you've decided to, do an online course, a full-time course, a part-time course. Doesn't matter which one you've chosen. Okay? I think I've at least given you enough that you need to do your research. Now you're at the camp. You've decided to go, you're at a full-time or whatever. Let's assume that you're going to a full-time. Don't leave all the teaching to the instructors. One thing that we learned is that they cannot teach us everything. Each one of us learn very differently. Okay? Some of us learn better in groups. Some of us learn better doing on whiteboards. And the number of times that I took half of my instructors and went, listen, I need you for 20 minutes. Drag them into the room with all the whiteboard and go, this is what I understand. And this is the piece I need to tie together. Some people needed to have the entire thing drawn out, not so much every line of code, but sort of conceptually, sort of which pieces fit where. Some needed to, help with one little piece of code. Some needed to have an understanding between each other. They can't do it all. Okay? If you think that you are going into this expecting one-on-one, you're dreaming. That is the lesson here. They cannot be holding your hand every single time. They did a good job. They did the best that they could with what they have. One thing I can say, though, is that we didn't have the ratio that we were probably promised. But we had it better than most. About 1 to 5, 1 to 6. So it's still not bad, don't get me wrong. That's what we were promised. Did we get it? A little bit iffy. We ended up looking up, I know one of the favorites in our group was Fun Function on YouTube. Somebody posted on one of our Slack channels, and I think we all got hooked on it. After I'd left the camp, the big one that I found is Medium. A lot of articles on Medium on React applications and so on. I found it very, very helpful. So all I'm saying is that don't expect to get one-on-one, and don't expect the instructors to be able to teach you everything, because they may not know every little bit of how you learn. Okay? But I can tell you that the ratios are definitely better than when I was teaching at Sheridan. Okay, we had what, like 1 to 20 ratios? Yeah, ask Mike, he will tell you, if not more than that. Know that you will always be a student. So you will not have much time for anything else. Okay, this is not a 9 to 5 job. You're not going to go in and learn and be expected to go home and just go, okay, I can watch my Netflix now, or Game of Thrones, or what was the other one? Somebody said this morning. Defenders. Yeah, no. You are going to go home and you are going to continue to code. Why? Because you've got an assignment due the next day. You will have assignments and everything else under the sun. This was actually taken at DevTO years ago. This is when we didn't have wonderful servers. By the way, thank you, SIPBAR. This is when they had to have like a volunteer who had SmartServe be able to sit there and somebody, I don't know if it was you guys that caught me, or anyway, yeah, my guys over here. So but alcohol does help. Hashtag Balmer Peak. Yes, Kira taught me Balmer Peak. So, and it works. It really does. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. But remember that you are a student, okay? You are not doing a 9 to 5 job. And unlike university, where you are doing, say, maybe 4 or 5 courses a week at 3 hours, no, you're there 9 to 5 every day, 9 to 6 in some cases, every day, and so are the instructors. Okay, so they need to have a life too. Build your portfolio on your website and on GitHub early. This was a mistake I made, okay? So you're learning from my mistake. Don't just leave it until the very end. I was actually pushing all my labs to GitHub very early. I made sure that I'd set it up early on. But all of our assignments, which would have been probably a better example of projects, were kept in a private repository, which is invisible. So I needed to now go back and rearrange everything. So what I've actually decided to do is go back and as part of my portfolio, which again is something else we need to talk about, is coding, is I'm actually going back and redoing every single one of my assignments. Maybe making them better, making them a little bit nicer to look at, better code. I thought it was nice to actually show what mistakes I was making, right? Be very raw about the whole experience. But either way, make sure that you do this early, okay? Because that's what employers are going to ask for, Okay? It's not necessarily the best way to hire, but that's what they're going to look for. They're going to ask you, so do you have examples of your work? Do you have, so my final project is up there, but, you know, other examples, not so much. So I need to, that's definitely something to fix. Afterwards. Yes, you'll notice there's some people in the crowd that were actually there that day. This is the day I graduated. This was our demo day. And I had wonderful people coming out and supporting me, and fellow graduates. So I'll point them out in a minute if you haven't already figured out who they are. You need to code every day. After you're done, do me a favor, and this is again a mistake I made, code every day. You'll forget. Okay? You have 10 weeks of stuff crowded into your head. And I've forgotten some of it. I really have. And that's a shame. Doing tests, pushing code on a regular basis, things like that. Make sure that you do that every day. The reason I chose this image, oddly enough, this was actually on one of BrainStation's, and I've credited BrainStation at the bottom there. This was on their blog post about one of our colleagues, Angelique. And oddly enough, that's not Angelique. That's me. This is a photo they took during our class. So I said, nah, screw it, I'm in the photo, I can use it. So this is, I decided I was going to scam it just for that reason, but I at least credited them. Same. But you need to code every day. Make sure that you keep in touch with your colleagues and your classmates. And some of mine are in the back row there. Just saying. Yeah, so they're in this photo somewhere, if you can find yourselves. This was actually taken when we went on a tour of Shopify, and they let us hang out on their patio deck upstairs. They will be our biggest fans, continued advisors, and the people who will support us every day of the week because they know what we're going through. So, and I found that the connections with my classmates from BrainStation are a heck of a lot closer than even those that I left Ryerson. When we graduated from Ryerson, I barely heard from any of them. I think I saw a wedding photo of one of the guys like a year ago, right? We set up a common group where we were literally talking to each other every day. Okay, so who still hasn't got a job yet? Who still hasn't, gotten this and that and the other thing? So you'll find in this picture all of our graduates as well as some of our instructors. This is a nice little piece of information that I got from Shaharis, actually, for those of you who know Hackernest. He gave me this wonderful little piece of advice, and it's something ever so small. Ever so small. Don't call it a final project. Some people will say to you, especially if you're looking for a junior developer job, did you do a final project at school? Yes, but here's the thing, you were getting marks for that. It has a very different connotation if somebody says to you, have you done a project on your own? Even if they ask you, well, have you done a final project? Well, yeah, but here, I want to tell you about this other project. You're not really lying. It is a project. It's just put in a very different light because it was something that you did on your own. It's not something you did for marks. It's not something you did because somebody told you to do it. And the light just went off in my head, and I went, God, that's so simple. But it makes a lot of sense. So don't call it a final project. Just call it a project. It is a project. Because more than likely the final project that you did was something you had drive to do in the first place. So just call it a project. The hardest lesson that I've had to learn through all of this is you may not become a developer. That's hard. It's really hard to learn, especially for somebody like myself who has actually gone through all of the stuff that I've gone through all of this, is to actually learn I may not be a developer at the end of the day. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not hireable. That doesn't mean that I haven't got other skills and can still incorporate what I learned at these schools, okay? So just because you go to coding school does not necessarily make you a developer. And that's a hard thing to learn. That, if nothing else you take away from this tonight, this is going to be it. What I can be one of the bigger or higher level technical service levels, customer support, customer success, that can handle, the tier 3s of the world. I can also be an evangelist to use a particular platform, whether it be GoDaddy, Pantheon, what are some of the other ones we know? Anyway, there's a ton of them out there who are doing the evangelist jobs, and they need to be able to talk to developers. Well, what kind of environment are you running? Well, actually, we're running this environment. See, so you actually have someone in front of you that actually knows what they're talking about, not just somebody who is a marketing person. There's a difference between a marketing person and an evangelist. Knowing that I've also been a teacher for so many years, I can also teach them how to use the various development areas and everything else. The reason I chose this picture, this is when I got colored in for my 3rd degree black belt. I'm also a martial artist. If nothing else, being a martial artist has taught me is the phrase, Jinsei Nanakarobi Yawaki. Life means falling down 6 times and getting up 7. So I'm not going to be a developer. Okay. Find something else. Try it again, because you know you'll succeed at it. So let's talk about some levels of expectations. Let's go back and revisit those and see what it is that we're missing. See this? Yeah. So these are the expectations that we talked about, right? We're talking about graduations, completions, all those kinds of things. So let's go back and let's examine each one of these one by one. I was told 80% of grads were hired within 30 days of graduation, 95% within 90 days. Actual numbers are 66% within 90 days of graduation. BrainStation has actually since changed their numbers. They've actually now published a report as of August of 2011 that now says 92% within 180 days. And I get that. I appreciate that they've changed the numbers to reflect what it is that is actually out there. Does this mean that BrainStation lied? No, it doesn't. Does it mean that the environment has changed? Probably more likely. Okay? So I'm not saying that I was lied to, but the expectation that I had to start with is different than what I got in the end of it. And 85% of those people were in the field of study that we're talking about. And just for the record, I'm at 105 days. Just saying. Here's the breakdown of employment status from the spring 2017 full stack web development program. We have 47% have been hired as full-time devs. 47. We have 34.8 that are still unemployed. 16 out of 24 are still unemployed. That's 66% that are employed, sorry. We have 4.3 that are interns and 13% that are freelanced. This is not from BrainStation. This is from my friend Show in the back row, because he's gone and made sure that each and every single one of us get hired. Okay, so this is not a skewed stat. This is from a realistic one that we talk to every single person. Upon completion, competency as a full stack web developer. Full stack is not what I thought. It is impossible to learn in 10 weeks. What I mean by that is the types of technologies that are being used in many of the job postings that I'm seeing are not JavaScript full stack. They're not asking for mean developers. They're not asking for Node.js developers as full stack developers. They're looking for .NET. They're looking for some C series. And I'm going to show you a slide in just a second that'll speak to that kind of stuff. But the type of technologies that are being asked for as a full stack web developer, which is what I was hoping for, and what I probably got, are not what's in demand. That's the problem. So this was actually pulled from the coding bootstrap market. These are the languages that are being taught at the schools. 39% are full stack in JavaScript. Okay, only 14% are teaching .NET. So if the full stack web development jobs are looking for .NET and the teaching school, the coding schools are looking At teaching JS, there's a mismatch. That's my point. Again, I really enjoyed what I learned. I really appreciate what I learned. But in the industry itself, because I'll tell you, I don't know of one of the coding schools here in Toronto that's teaching .NET. They're teaching Ruby, they're teaching JavaScript. Some are very rarely teaching PHP, maybe a little bit of Python. Nobody's teaching .NET. Well, if the full stack web development jobs are looking for .NET and the schools aren't teaching it, where are they coming from? There's a mismatch somewhere, just saying. That there were partnerships with companies that would hire grads in the program. The school didn't provide these leads to the companies that we'd hire as I thought, including their parent company. I've applied to Brain Station 3 times. I've applied to the Conrad Group, who is their parent company, 4 times. I've heard nothing, including their graduate web developer. I know they're busy, and I know that they actually say on their website that they can't respond to everybody. But you say that you hire our grads, so who have you hired lately? I had an expectation that there was going to be postgraduate support. This is on me. This is what I should have looked at right from the beginning. And all of this comes down to, it's on me. Okay? This is on me. I should have done more research. I should have looked at the grads. I should have looked at the research ahead of time. But it's your job now that you can actually learn from my mistakes. These are some of the resources that I looked at, including the Brain Station August 2017 report, Bloomberg, the course report, which actually lists most of the statistics that you've seen here today. So you'll be able to find almost everything that you want. And I thank you for your time. And just so you know, yeah, that's me on the Great Wall of China as well. So that just means that I climbed it all. So we have some moments. Have some moments.
Did you do their before you do the targets?
No. No, I took planes, trains, and automobiles, my friend. A lot of them. Do we have time for questions? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Ron.
So the promise always used to be that, hey, come to our coding school and then you'll get a job as a developer. And as you're pointing out, that actually often is not. Are you seeing any kind of more realistic advertising, let's call it, or message coming from the schools now? And I'm just wondering, do they actually have anything that's more realistic to say that is actually makes it still seem like it might be a decision, or are they just other type of reality?
So the question was, are we seeing any more realistic sort of portrayals of what these people will come out with? The answer the question used to be, I can come out as a developer, those types of things. The short answer is, I don't think I ever asked the question in the first place, which is, again, part of my lack of research. I think that they are still saying that you can come out as a developer. I was actually warned by a couple of people that I trust very, very dearly who said that's a lot to learn in 10 weeks. But I'm like, wait a minute, I've done development before. Even if it's just the precursor, I can do this. And I did, don't get me wrong, I got through it and everything else, but did I remember it? It's retention, I think, that is the problem. So I think the challenge is the after part. I know, for example, that Lighthouse Labs has a program in place where I think they meet with their people about once a month after graduation to check in on them and so on. HackerU, as far as I know, meets with their people that have not been hired once a week. We had one meeting with a coordinator 20 days post and have never heard from them again. And I think that's part of what would make it more successful, is that what I would call post-graduation support. So I think I just didn't ask the question to begin with. They're here and then over here.
Just wanted to clarify, so you said it's been 105 days post-grad, so, and then you kind of made it sound like you've accepted that you're not a developer, but are you still hoping to be a developer, or are you Or you just kind of saying that ship has sailed or accepting that you're not?
So have I accepted the fact that 105 days post-graduation that I'm not a developer?
No, like, are you still trying to be a developer, or are you just saying you've done the course and you're going to move on and do something else?
No, I would say that I'm not moving on to do something else. I am accepting the idea that I don't have to fit into this little box as being a junior developer. What I'm moving on to is that there may be other opportunities that still use the skills that I learned and not necessarily be a developer, but somebody who supports a developer, like an evangelist or a customer support or a customer success or something of that nature that speaks to the developers so that I can be an interpreter as opposed to the developer itself. Have I stopped looking for web developer jobs? Check my email. I still have alerts set up for junior web developer. It's still there. It's still a hope. The other problem, though, in my case, and this is just in my case, and I have one of my former students here, one of my former coordinators, my former co-instructor, and some of my colleagues from code school, they will all tell you I'm a teacher. At heart, I am still a teacher. So that's part of my problem, is finding something that isn't just stuck behind a computer all day. So that's me personally. That's not necessarily due to the code school itself. I think I'm having trouble reconciling the two sides of myself, I would call it. So have I given up on becoming a developer? No. But what I finally figured out is that I don't have to be a developer to be successful, and that I can still be that, but I think that I need what I would call a half step in my career to then get to a developer. I need to get back in so that I can start coding again and getting that sort of role again before I can become that developer again. Because a lot of them are actually, and the other mismatch is that, and most of those junior developer roles, they're asking for a minimum of 2 years experience. Well, we just graduated from a coding school. Like, who hires a junior? By the time you've done 2 years of experience, they should be going into intermediate by then. Just saying. So, you know, there's a mismatch, at least in the hiring side of things as well, is what would be my opinion. But have I given up? No. No. Again, I'm Marcia Lewis. Didn't say Nana Karobi. Yeah.
So I loved your part about how you said that you realize that you may not be a coder. I think that takes a lot of self-reflection and analyzation and some self-awareness. How much do you think maybe the lack of those things is contributing to that low hiring rate for people who are coming out of those boot camps? Because the truth of the matter is there's only so many jobs, and there's a lot of people coming out of
Sure.
boot camps because there's a lot of these coding schools, and we're seeing them, like, they're filling their schools up, and so
They are.
you know, they're pumping all these people out, and like you said, they may not have all the skills or whatever, but there's a lot of them coming out. Not everyone could like be a coder, you know.
Right.
So what do you think that that might be part of the disconnect?
I think that, let me see if I can answer it. I'm not sure if I have an exact answer. I think that there are, especially in Toronto, I mean, Bodan, has there ever been a time that you stood up here and not asked about hiring somebody? Right. It's never happened. It's never. So here's the thing: is that all of these companies are saying we need developers, we need developers, we need developers. We actually, Rose and I, we were on a panel last weekend or last Friday actually, and the moderator said that there are 2 people on here who are looking to be hired. For those of you who know James Wilkinson, he's heading up FSTO. And he said there are 2 people here that are looking to be hired. If you need a junior developer, there's 2 right here. Rose backed me up on this. Not a single company approached us. Not a single one. Not a single person. I think the problem is that there aren't enough companies out there that realize that they need junior developers, that they can bring up into their own roles, and that they can mold in their own way. Any intermediate and senior developers that they bring on are going to carry, I didn't want to say the word baggage. No, it has a level of connotation I don't want to use, but they bring along with them some previous sort of structure. If you hire a junior developer, even if you've got 50 other developers, for God's sakes, build the infrastructure that you can bring in those junior developers and bring them out of those code camps so that they can do that. I think that's a better a better problem is that there aren't enough job postings of junior developers because the employers aren't posting for them because they think they can't use them. And I would beg to differ.
Frederick, if I had hired junior developers, actually the one of my last hire was a junior developer.
Okay, so they hired junior developers, but again, it's very rare. So I would say that it's a mismatch between the hiring of the organizations and so on. They're not necessarily stuck in their ways, but they you know, you can at least bring in junior developers, and I think it's incumbent upon the technology community here in Toronto to recognize that they need to bring in those junior developers. If we are such a great community that helps our community, help the junior developers. That's my advice.
So is there a mentorship issue then? Because it sounds like.
It's not just mentorship. Here's the thing. I have mentors. I have great mentors. It doesn't pay. Like, that's the reality of it. That's why I had to leave my previous job, is because it didn't pay enough. So the point is that it's great to have a mentor who can help guide me and everything else. But if it doesn't end up leading to the job and paying my bills, that's the bigger problem. And so I think that we need to have an environment in which the Toronto community, the tech community, needs to start hiring these junior developers. Otherwise, we're losing them. I've been applying to jobs in everywhere from the UK to India to California to Ohio, you name it. And here's the thing, I'm getting emails every single day from companies in the US who need us. Problem is, I don't have sponsorship. But they're looking for people with my stuff. Problem is, the Toronto community isn't bringing that up, at least not to my knowledge, not that I've experienced. We went on a number of tech tours, and guess what? Half of them weren't even hiring for the tech stack that we were doing. We went to one place, I won't name it, but we actually went there and we said, so what's your tech stack? That's what we were taught to ask in an interview. What is your tech stack? Ruby on Rails. Okay, great. We went to another big company that has at least 3 or 4 offices, one here in Toronto that houses at least 150 of them. They have no postings for junior developers. So I think there's also a mismatch between the tours that we went on. Because any of those companies that were large enough to probably hire us aren't hiring junior developers, but they should be. That's my point. Whether it's the tech stack or not, but they should be hiring junior developers at some point. That would be my argument.
Last question.
Fair enough? We have time for one more?
Yes, last
Okay, last question. Yes, okay.
I think your speech was wonderful. It hits really close to home because I'm
Thank you.
actually in week 9 at a bootcamp at BitMaker.
BitMaker, okay, yeah.
And the stuff that we're learning is Ruby on Rails with JavaScript, with Postgres, SQL, and a lot of the stuff that you said. I wish there was someone before the program that said all this. However, I did a lot of research before entering into the program.
I thought I had. That's the point. Yes, go
I
on.
think the onus is really on yourself, and I think that the fact that the boot camps around the city, they don't pick the candidates that come in. It's kind of just they're filling in their seats and their quotas.
And that's the
So
problem,
they're getting
yeah.
a lot of developers who are not. I don't mean to sound rude, but they're not.
They're not up to snuff
they're not-
necessarily, yeah. Yeah.
And so the companies around the city don't necessarily want to hire that kind of quality. So
Mhm.
I think it's not just the companies in the city, but the boot camps, they need to raise their standards. Because, like, as I said, I'm in week 9, and I can tell you that I know people in my class that are not going to be developers because a lot of it is, it's not just what you learn in class. Like, for the last 9 weeks, I have put my life on hold, and weekends, evenings,
It sounds familiar. We put our lives on hold, yeah?
and this is all I
Okay.
do, and it's not just a
Uh-huh.
matter of the assignments that are handed to me. I make it a point to see what kind of technologies are current, what kind of things that I
Mhm.
can do with myself to advance myself.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that it's not gonna be like, as soon as the program's over, oh, I'm gonna be hired. So I think there's a mismatch in what people's expectations.
Mhm.
So I think it's not just the tech community in Toronto.
It's not just the tech
I think
community.
it's the boot camps. I think they need to raise their standards.
The boot camps themselves need to raise it. Sorry, I'm just repeating it at least for the video's sake. So You're right. Some of the onus should fall upon the boot camps, and I know that they have to fill seats. You're absolutely right, and I didn't want to sound as go to that level, but it's absolutely true. They have to fill their seats. They have to, be profitable and things like that. The code report actually that I showed, I think, right about here, the last one here, actually talks about how many of them have shut down, and that one of them at least was forced to shut down, not here in Toronto, but in the US. And they were actually forced to shut down because what they put on their website did not match with what they were being given and so on. So I think you're absolutely right. The onus falls upon them because now coding schools have a negative connotation when it comes to hiring. But the other part of that, though, is that if you look at all the job postings themselves, without even applying, okay, that is another problem in and of itself. So the actual full stack, in my case, full stack, development jobs are few and far between for junior full stack. And even of those, for a full stack, they're looking at .NET and the other technologies. So it becomes much more, of a smaller piece. They all want, if you're a junior, they assume you're front end. I'm not. I'm totally not. But anyway, that may be another talk that we'll see you give in a couple of months. You're gonna get her on track, right? Okay. All right, you've been hired. I thank you all for your time. Please, by all means, if you have any questions, tweet at me. I'm giving this talk again on Saturday. I'd love your feedback. Thank you very much.